What's cracking, y'all? You are now watching Boo TV. Appreciate you for stopping in. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, stay notified, and let's get into the topic for today. What's cracking, y'all? Back with another Johnny Arnett video. One of the greatest rivalries of all time, arguably the greatest rivalry of all time. Magic Johnson versus Larry Bird. Who's the greater legend? Johnny Arnett, the great YouTuber, YouTube channel, proposes to us. I'm surprised how many 80s content Arnett has that I haven't seen before. He keeps popping up on my feed. It's like, I never watched this Johnny video. I never watched. And here's a good one. And this is something I've talked about on my channel before. If you're new here, check out our Larry Bird playlist. Check out our Magic Johnson playlist. Check out our 1980s Celtics playlist as well as our 80s Lakers playlist. Who's the greater legend? In your opinion, is it Larry Bird or Magic Johnson? They've went head to head in the finals before, with Magic Johnson taking 2, I believe, and Larry Bird having 1. Went head to head with each other in the NCAA championship. Came into the NBA together. 2 pioneers of the NBA, moved it forward. Helped move it along into a better place. While Dr. J was holding it down on life support, they were able to breathe new life into the league on so many different levels. It was a great time for basketball in the 80s. A new horizon of basketball in the 80s, if you will. And what also made the rivalry and the basketball just that much more significant and felt, and just, increasing the magnitude of it all, is how contrasting in personalities Larry Bird and Magic Johnson were. Larry, the introvert, Magic Johnson, the extrovert. Larry, a bit of a recluse, Magic Johnson, much of the opposite. Magic Johnson, embracing the city life, the highlights, the people, the woman. Larry Bird just wants to go back to French Lick, do some fly fishing, crank back some beers with a couple's, close friends and family, and, stay out of the cameras. They were just so different in so many different ways, but eventually they would build a unbreakable bond as brothers, and it's just a beautiful story. And I'm not going to get into it because I could go on for literally 2 hours just talking about the story of Magic Johnson and Larry Bird and where basketball fits into it all. But I encourage you to go check out our Larry Bird playlist, check out our Magic Johnson playlist, and there is hundreds of videos covering all of that content, especially some very extended ones, 1.5 to 2 hours long, that cover the entire story of Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. So I encourage you to go check those out. So just basketball, if you've been a member here, I'll tell you before we watch the video, I'm taking Larry Bird over Magic Johnson. All things considered, I know Magic has more championships, but championships aren't the end-all, be-all, but it's definitely a big piece of the puzzle. But especially as an individual player, I think I'd take Larry Bird. I think Larry Bird was a bit better than Magic Johnson. I think Larry Bird was a better scorer than Magic Johnson from practically all areas of the floor. Magic was really dynamic, scoring in the fast break. Definitely, I say in the fast break, he was better than Bird. Magic, we all talk about his passing in the fast break, but his passing and the threat of his passing allowed him to do amazing stuff, finishing at the basket on the run. Exceptional stuff. I think Magic Johnson was the better passer, though Larry Bird was still a great passer. And I get it, Larry Bird didn't have the ball in his hands as much as Magic Johnson from a point guard perspective. But still, Magic's the best passer as point guard I've ever seen, regardless. Magic was the engine of the team as far as passing goes. He really made a lot of people better without, taking away much from them individually. He held the ball, but he didn't hold the ball like a James Harden hold the ball, for 22 seconds of the shot clock type of thing. It wasn't anything like that. But especially in the fast break, man, he got so many people easy baskets. So many players. And even in the half court, what he was able to do. So all you had to do was be ready to catch the ball and make sure you finish. Magic and have it on a platter for you. He was special. He's a special passer. And it was crazy because everybody knew he was trying to pass, but you still couldn't stop him from passing. Rebounding, Larry Bird was a guaranteed double-double. Larry Bird was 6'9". Some people say 6'10". Didn't have all the athleticism in the world or anything like that, but he had great timing, great anticipation, and would fight down there on the block for those rebounds and could read angles well. Magic Johnson generally wasn't as close to the basket as Bird was, being that Bird played the small forward position and Magic was point guard, so he was a little bit more towards the perimeter, but that shouldn't stop you from crashing the board. So I do take that into consideration, but I've seen small players like Jason Kidd and Russell Westbrook relentlessly crash the boards for rebounds. So, I think I got to give the edge to. I'm giving the edge to Bird. Don't get me wrong, Magic still averaged over 7 rebounds per game. But I think if he crashed the boards a little higher, he probably could have averaged a triple-double, to be honest with you, on his career. I think if he crashed the boards a little harder. Clutch, I'm definitely taking Larry Bird. Though Magic Johnson doesn't get enough credit for being a clutch player. Magic Johnson was very clutch, and he developed a pretty reliable jump shot, especially later in his career. But Magic Johnson has hit plenty of clutch baskets, but he never gets credit for it. But I'm taking Larry Bird. I think that's a no-brainer. Bird was one of the most clutch players to ever play the game of basketball, a complete sniper, and could kill you from so many different ways on all areas of the court. You really couldn't push him anywhere where he was really uncomfortable. So Bird was ice cold, man, ice cold, running through his veins, an assassin in the clutch, no question about it. Ball handling, I don't know. Maybe I'm getting too thick in the weeds. Ball handling, probably have to go Magic Johnson on that one. I think Magic Johnson's probably the better ball handler in the half court and in the fast break. Some of the things I've seen Magic Johnson do. But Larry wasn't bad. But Bird wasn't an over dribbler either. He really wasn't. He liked to get in his spots and catch the ball and make quick, decisive movements and, go right into his move. But he wasn't much of an over-dribbler. Magic wasn't either per se, but he was more of a dribbler than Larry was. Defense, I think that's a no-brainer as well. That one's Larry Bird. He's made a, handful of All-NBA second-team defensive selections and very underrated defender. Wasn't a lockdown defender, but like I said, great anticipation. Read schemes well, did his homework, understood players' patterns of history and routes and tendencies and where they felt comfortable, where they felt uncomfortable, played the passing lanes, those kinds of things. So Magic Johnson, for the most part, was a pretty average defender. At times, I felt like he could be subpar. And granted, I wasn't watching him in the 80s, so this is off film I've seen and watching all these videos, but I know that Magic Johnson, because he played the point guard position, he usually had trouble staying in front of the quicker point guard. Despite his size, the smaller point guards would give him trouble and they'd blow by him a lot. But Magic did have some quick hands. I don't think his hands were as quick as Bird's, but Magic could play the passing lanes pretty well. And I think for a handful of seasons, I don't remember how many off the top of my head, but I even think he led the league in steals. At least 2 times, maybe more. I'm not sure. But he could play those passing lanes well. When he played the passing lanes and caught the steal, instant fast break. It was off to the races. Showtime style like Magic Johnson liked to push. Anyway, I think Larry Bird takes away most of the categories. And the big thing where Magic gets Larry, it's probably passing. And the thing with that is he's a better passer than Bird in my opinion, but he's not that, he isn't overwhelmingly a better passer than Larry Bird. That's the thing. But depending on how far you want to get into the weeds and how many categories you want to bring up, I'm just throwing those out there. But, Yeah, I'm taking Larry Bird all day, every day. All right, let's get into it.
In this Versus series, we take a look at two greats of basketball history as we analyze their skills, achievements, and career totals, ending with a conclusion on who is the greater basketball player overall. Today, our matchup is the man known for his magic on the court, Earvin Johnson, versus Larry legend, Larry Bird. Both legends spent the entirety of their career with one of the most prestigious franchises of NBA history. Magic played 13 seasons with the Los Angeles Lakers, and Bird played 13 seasons with the Boston Celtics. Magic was a 6'9" point guard who weighed around 215 pounds. Larry was a 6'9" small forward/power forward who weighed around 220 pounds. Two men who were each accredited with saving the NBA in the 1980s. Two men who each have an argument of being the greatest player of their era. We'll compare these two greats with 5 major categories, which sometimes vary in categories depending on positions and playstyles. In this video for these two icons of basketball, the categories are scoring, facilitating, rebounding, defense, and accolades. First off, scoring. Magic Johnson was a much better scorer than people typically give him credit for, especially when you consider how he's one out of only 2 players to average over 10 assists per game for his career. Despite the fact that his number one priority was usually to get his teammates going, he still managed to consistently get his, as he averaged 19.5 points per game over the course of his career. He was a great finisher around the rim, and he managed to get himself more clean looks than most, since the defense always had to be on their heels because of his ability to find the open man. This led him to be extremely efficient throughout his career, as he shot 52% from the field over his 13 seasons, which is almost unheard of by point guard standards. He also was a tremendous free throw shooter, hitting 84.8% of his attempts over his career, and even led the league in overall free throw percentage in 1989. Now Bird, on the other hand, is immediately known for his scoring. He was also a 6'9" small forward with a high release point on his jumper, so contesting his shots was quite difficult. With his fantastic footwork, his underrated handles, his finesse around the basket, and lethal perimeter shooting, he averaged 24.3 points over the course of his career. He never led the league in scoring, but unlike Magic, he was right around the top of the list on several occasions. As far as perimeter scorers go, Bird has an argument for being the most efficient scorer in NBA history. He led the league in free throw percentage 4 times, and he also had 2 50-40-90 seasons in his career, which is the second most in NBA history. The only player with more 50-40-90 seasons was the Hall of Famer Steve Nash, but Nash was never close to being a near 30 points per game scorer like Larry was several seasons. So the fact that Bird was able to maintain that efficiency as a perimeter scorer and at such a high volume of shots is pretty much unprecedented. Magic gets some bonus points for being a capable and efficient scorer even while being an all-time leader in assists. But even with that being said, it's still not enough to close the gap between him and the all-around-the-court threat that is Larry Bird. Scoring goes to Larry Bird. Second up is facilitating. Now, I alluded to this in the previous topic, but Magic is arguably and probably considered by most as the greatest passer of all time. He has the highest assists per game average in NBA history at 11.2, and he led the league in assists 4 times. It's easy to simply look at the numbers and say that Magic was the best passer on his team, but he was so much more than just that. Magic was the engine that drove the Showtime Lakers' high-octane offense. Magic was obsessed with pushing the tempo nearly every time the Lakers gained possession, and it resulted in many easy buckets for his slashing teammates. His ability to make smart split-second decisions is unmatched, and his court vision would have you swearing that he has eyes in the back of his head with the passes he was consistently making. On top of all of that, he was a 6'9" point guard, so interfering with some of his higher passes was nearly impossible for many of his smaller defenders. Now, Bird was a much better distributor than most people realize. He started his career as a power forward, and if he had remained in that position, then he would probably be known today as the greatest passing power forward of all time. He shared a similar ability to Magic in terms of their incredible court vision, and he's been praised by Magic on numerous occasions for that exact skill. He averaged 6.3 assists on his career, averaging as high as 7.6 in 1987. He was usually not among the assist leaders of the league, but he was consistently among the leaders at his position. The same way Magic got bonus points in the scoring category, Bird also gets bonus points in the facilitating category, as it was remarkable that Bird assisted his teammates as often as he did when you consider the fact that Bird chose to shoot the ball nearly 50% more often than Magic Johnson did. Still, unless you're a gold medalist in mental gymnastics, facilitating clearly has to go to Magic, as his incredible ability to make his teammates better is simply one of a kind. Third up is rebounding. Now this one can be a little bit tricky since I'm making the case for different positions. One is typically more of a perimeter player, while the other plays more in the interior, and naturally, the advantage goes to the interior player where most rebounds are available, especially in an era like the 80s where less perimeter shots are taken. All things considered, Magic was a pretty good rebounder, especially by point guard standards. He successfully used his superior height and frame to his advantage over smaller guards, and he was often hungry to get the ball as quickly as possible so he could then push the fast break on offense. He averaged 7.2 rebounds over the course of his career, getting as high as 9.6 in 1982. Now Larry Bird averaged 10 rebounds per game over his career, getting as high as 11 in 1983. One thing no one ever questioned about Bird back then was his hustle and heart. It was common for him to play the game with a physical and tenacious approach, and doing so continuously with 100% effort. These are qualities that naturally benefit a player's ability to secure the boards. This has resulted in Bird having the 50th highest rebounds per game average in NBA history. Most of the players on that list are either primarily power forwards or centers though, which Larry was not. He played mostly as a small forward. Among primary small forwards, Larry has the third greatest rebounds per game average in NBA history. When you consider the positions, this one is extremely close. But for me, the slight edge goes to Larry Bird. Not just because of his higher numbers, but it's about how he played to get those numbers, as Bird was known for a more grit and grind type approach, which is a great quality when you're banging for the boards in the 80s. Fourth on the list is defense. Magic was never considered as an elite defender, as he didn't make any all-defense teams in his career, but he was certainly a capable one. His sheer size made it somewhat difficult for opposing guards to score over him or to get into a favorable position with physicality. Magic had a high top speed that he always used on offense, but his lateral movement wasn't the quickest on defense, which made it sometimes difficult for him to stay in front of the quicker, smaller guards. His hands were decently quick, and he was pretty good at jumping the passing lanes, which resulted in him leading the league in steals twice, including the 1981 season where he averaged an incredibly strong 3.4 steals per game. He also averaged 1.9 steals over the course of his career, although he didn't have a strong vertical leap and was never a good shot blocker, as he only averaged 0.4 blocks over his career and never averaged at least one per game in a season, which is pretty surprising considering his height and length advantage over almost every opposing guard. Larry was known to be slow, and he wasn't the most quick or athletically gifted player, but I do think he's somewhat of an underrated defender compared to how he's perceived by the general public. The Boston Celtics were a consistently elite defensive team, and Bird's high basketball IQ was a significant help in that area. Bird made 3 all-defense teams and averaged 1.7 steals and 0.8 blocks over his 13 seasons. Bird could be a bit of a pest on defense, as his effort and tenacious attitude was never lacking. Due to his slower and less athletic frame, it wasn't uncommon for him to need help defensively if he was guarding some of the athletic and talented wings in the league, like Michael Jordan and Dominique Wilkins for example. With that being said, Bird was good at communicating with his teammates, trapping offensive players and forcing turnovers as a result. This one is somewhat close, but at the end of the day, Bird has the slightly better individual defensive numbers, he's the more accomplished defensive player, and he was the team leader of the consistently better defensive team throughout the decade. Defense goes to Larry Bird. Last on the list of categories is accolades, and both of these legends had a ton of them. Magic Johnson won 5 NBA championships, 3 Finals MVPs, and he won 3 League MVPs. He made 12 All-Star teams and 10 All-NBA teams. He was a 4-time assist champion and a 2-time steals champion. In his 13 seasons, he averaged 19.5 points, 7.2 rebounds, 11.2 assists, 1.9 steals, and 0.4 blocks on 61 true shooting percentage. Larry Bird won 3 NBA championships, 2 Finals MVPs, and 3 league MVPs. He made 12 All-Star teams, 10 All-NBA teams, and 3 All-Defense teams. He was also the 1980 Rookie of the Year and was a 2-time 50-40-90 player. In his 13 seasons, he averaged 24.3 points, 10 rebounds, 6.3 assists, 1.7 steals, and 0.8 blocks on 56.4 true shooting percentage. Based on this list, I think Magic has the slight advantage on accolades. Now, as far as how these players compare as a whole, as usual, it's extremely close. And the only reason I'm picking between these two is because I have to for the sake of the series. But for myself personally, Larry Bird is the more complete player and ranks higher on my all-time list. I think most of the time, people rank Magic slightly higher because of his edge in championships over Bird. But you have to also consider that basketball is a team sport, and although both legends were blessed with a tremendous supporting cast, also keep in mind that the East was definitely the stronger conference throughout the 80s,
Yes.
which meant it was even more difficult for the Celtics to get to the NBA Finals in the first place. Although I do think Bird is the slightly better and more complete individual player, I do think there is a strong argument for Magic. But I think that argument goes beyond the stat sheet and leans more into the narrative that no one has ever made their teammates better than Magic Johnson did, which is probably true, and if that's enough for him to be your choice, then I respect that. Let me know in the comments section who's higher on your list, Magic Johnson or Larry Bird. Thanks for watching as always. Make sure to like and subscribe for more basketball content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
Johnny Arnett has spoken. And me and Johnny Arnett agree, or seem to agree, on a lot of things here. So, like I said, I think just what it comes down to, I just think Bird's the better player, and he has enough accolades, to be, to be in the conversation with Magic Johnson, but accolades including, player profile, I'm giving the edge to Bird like Johnny Arnett is. But the same way Johnny Arnett said, if you pick Magic, there is a strong argument for it. Like, it is like a seesaw of who could it be, So, there are compelling arguments for Magic Johnson, just as there are compelling arguments for Bird. So I wouldn't really get in an argument with you either way. I mean, tomatoes, tomato, baby. Tomatoes, tomato. So, definitely. For me, Bird. Let me know what you think about it in the comment section. Who do you think is a greater legend? Magic Johnson or Larry Bird? I would love to hear your opinion. Break it down however you like. I know y'all got all the stats and all the, y'all some Larry Bird and Magic Johnson experts. Way, way more than I am. I've learned a lot of what I've learned from you all, but a lot of the advanced stats and advanced metrics, you guys know all of them joints off the top of your head. I'm like, whoo, y'all know y'all shit. Y'all know y'all basketball, baby. But yeah, Bird Gang, what up? Lakers Nation, what up? I don't think there's a Magic Gang. So Bird Gang is what it is, right? You got the Bird call. Like I said, check out our Larry Bird playlist, our Magic Johnson playlist, and our 80s Lakers and Celtics playlist. Appreciate y'all for stepping in. Johnny Arnett with another golden gem. I don't know if that really makes sense. Johnny Arnett with another gem. And I appreciate y'all for stepping in. Ooh, that rhymes. Johnny Arnett with another gem, and I appreciate y'all for stepping in. We out, baby.